Hi, Jatan.
Hey Rashi, hi, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Very well. Thank you so much for doing this uh, with us. Means a lot.
No, thanks back at you. Yeah, we've been really inspired with your journey as well as a brand, and been very excited and looking forward to this conversation. So it's a pleasure to actually have this interaction with you.
I think likewise. I've been speaking with Ankesh for a while, and I have told him
Right.
multiple times what you guys are building is very, very encourageous and as well as very interesting for me because I'm also building something in a different category. So there are very unique challenges that you and I would come across,
Right.
and would love to sort of talk about some of those challenges. But once again, really appreciate you taking out the time because I know a founder's time is always very, very critical and expensive. So thank you for doing
True
this.
that. Thanks a lot to you as well, Jatin. It's been a pleasure watching the journey of Perfora because, when we spotted you guys first, the first sentiment that we had was, oh, there's somebody who understands the kind of brand that we are also trying to build. Because, you guys are trying to understand how much patience it requires to actually educate the consumer in an area where a market was non-existent, right? So to be able to educate them and to build a proper brand from there on is like you mentioned rightly is quite challenging, but it's also exciting in its own way because you're your own category creator. So there's also a lot of excitement, in every bit of work that you're doing. Every time a customer sort of validates what you're doing, it gives you a lot of pleasure to sort of hear that from them. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
so
even a lot of validation, I would say, right? Because
yeah.
every customer matters, and the moment you see that someone's willing to, buy into your product or your story, and eventually when they get back with a good feedback, or I would say even a constructive feedback, you're doing these three things right, and you need to sort of improve on these two things. I think that is what I look forward to. People buying
True.
us, reviewing us, getting back with some very constructive and actionable
Pointed
feedback.
feedback. Yes. Yes.
And then that's how we sort of build on the journey and hopefully end up building an interesting brand in the process.
Yeah, yeah. True that. True that. Yeah. So I
Great.
think
So,
we have enough people on board, so we can probably start our conversation. Uh, you
sure.
know. Yeah.
So, I have a couple of burning questions to start with. So let me go first. So I
Sure.
think the the moment I sort of discovered ALANNA, one of the first thoughts, I'm a curious guy, that sort of crossed my mind was what led you guys to start into this category? How did you discover that lip care is a big problem? And it's of course it's a big problem, but it's a neglected problem, right? So what led you to sort of starting up in this category and figuring out that this is the problem that you want to solve?
Yeah, so I think what led us to the insight was that we were the first brand to launch lip scrubs when we were into our natural skincare space in 2015. And we realized that this particular product was selling on its own, and it had an organic pick. We spent zero money on marketing or building awareness of this particular product because it was a very low value product, right? So it was not our primary focus initially. But then we realized that Nykaa, we were the top sellers. We were, in fact, the best sellers for consecutively 3 to 4 years, and people were buying it on their own, and it became really popular. So we wanted to further deep dive onto it. Why are people really purchasing it? Is there a specific problem that they have that they're looking a solution for? And most of them responded with, I have dark lips, I have pigmented lips, and I'm looking for a solution for that. So when we heard that, we also wanted to understand whether it is something which is actually a problem with most people, or it is something which a very few section of people suffer with. And when we researched, we realized India being aping the West in most cases, but unlike the West, our climate is a lot warmer. So hydration is an important aspect in lip care, but it is only an important aspect during a selective season. What happens beyond that? So when you have like situations because we have a very polluted country, we have more exposure to sun, so sun damage, pollution, smoke, etc. That is something that is an issue with a lot of people, and this further causes pigmentation. So we realize that the pigmentation root cause is actually quite significant, and it's quite present in the life of people today. And there's no brand really particularly trying, they're probably thinking that it's not such a big deal to people, but people are desperate, they are trying to look for a solution. It's a very difficult problem to solve. We have realized that because there are so many issues when it comes to being aware of why lip pigmentation happens in the first place. Most of our customers come and say, I don't smoke, I don't use cosmetics, then why are my lips dark? So educating the customer right from the fundamental and then upwards has been a journey. But yeah, so rightly putting it that way, this is how we realized it. The lip scrub, further deep diving into it, understanding that most customers are actually facing the similar challenge, we realized that, okay, this is some area which is not developed. It's not had this routine steps. Like you have a face care regime where you have 10 steps, right? But you don't really have anything for lips. Jabki lips are such a different part of your body, right? They are very sensitive. They have only 5 to 6 layers as compared to your facial skin, which is around 16 layers. So they need their own regime. They need their own attention, and just a lip balm won't do. So we wanted to create a science-backed brand which has lab-proven ingredients, really launch a proper regime, step-by-step regime for the consumer to follow in their day-to-day life, so that they are gradually able to move their through OTC, not through artificial fillers, but through over-the-counter products, but gradually move into the direction of solving their lip issues.
Quite
Yeah.
impressive the way you sort of discovered what category to sort of penetrate into, right? And,
Right.
and the way I often say, in many of my conversations that I have with people, that people have, consumers have broadly solved for good hair, good skin, but they haven't really solved for good teeth, good lips, etc. Right? It's the smaller
Right.
parts, but which are very essential part of our appearance overall. But
Right.
this is something that, and the way forward from here on would be, new age brands solving for these specific niches, and then eventually going on to become fairly large, because this is a problem that some people do realize and some people don't. But the moment you make them realize, they will understand the importance of it.
Exactly.
Another question that sort of comes through what you just said, how do you go about product development and figuring out the efficacy part of your products, right? Because
Right.
inherently, I won't lie, right? I'm one of the least self-groomed men out there that doesn't pay any attention to skincare, hair care, or even teeth for the large part of my life, but and even lips for that matter. But this is an interesting because brands like us that are trying to solve for consumers, we go deep into understanding what problems consumers are facing, right? So
Right.
would you
Right.
like to sort of tell us a little bit about what does the product development process and the
Sure.
efficacy part look like for you?
Yeah, so we actually have a in-house team which particularly brainstorms in terms of what kind of products or what kind of needs or problems that are there out in the market, where the consumer is facing, and how is the best way to sort of resolve that. When we sort of evaluate, then we further deep dive into what kind of steps are missing, maybe in their routine, or it could be a specific ingredient doing exceptionally well into the other segments of skincare, hair care, but has not been experimented much when it comes to lips, right? So we sort of study from, we have like partnerships with a lot of top ingredient suppliers in the country, and we study a lot of research that has gone behind ingredients. Then we do a lot of study in terms of what are the kind of problems that our consumers are still facing. Maybe our current products are still not able to resolve their issues, and then our entire effort is to solve their problem, because clearly that their pigmentation could be more severe, and therefore maybe one or two of our products is still not giving them the solution that they're looking for. while it has benefited a lot of others, it's still not benefited a few. So how can we further improve either the current version of our product, or to get more advanced solutions in play so that we are able to solve that? So problem solution and ingredient, these two areas are our key focus. Apart from that, one area where we really focus on is the aspect of being lip safe. Why it's important for us is because everything, just like in oral care, right, everything goes inside the mouth, and anything that you put on your lips as well goes inside your mouth most of the times. So whatever actives or ingredients or surfactants that we use, they have to be either certified organic, or they have to be in the dermal limit, which is approved for lips, right? Because lips are more sensitive, so you have different dermal limits into it. So we actually formulate accordingly. And when it comes to other areas like no animal derived products, being vegan, those are our brand promises that we actually completely go by. They have to be effective. For efficacy, we do a lot of lab studies. We also, like I said, have a lot of research done on the ingredients, proofs of the ingredients from the lab studies, etc. And then we incorporate into a formulation. The formulation is done into multiple sample testings, and once we are confirmed and happy with the particular sample, then we use the exact container that would really give that the enhancement and the use of, then it comes about the ease of use of the product, right? And post that is the launch. So really trying to really trying to pinpoint and try to focus on every little aspect that will touch the consumer's life in terms of the experience, right? So really trying to get in there and trying to understand that acha ye problem aa sakti hai, ye problem aa sakti hai, and then trying to solve that. So yeah, so broadly that's where we are.
Got it. And I think one thing that I'm very curious to know and understand, how long does this process take for you, right? Right from
Oh God.
product to sort of making it see the light of the day, right? Or making the launch happen. What does the gestation period for the launch look like? Like a tentative, because it will depend and differ product to product. I understand
Right.
that. But what does a minimum or a maximum time look like?
So if the category is already existent, then our job is easier because we're just trying to make a more superior, more effective product. Then it will take somewhere around a month or 3 months maximum, because we have to do certain stability testings, etc., as well before the launch. But if something like our lip wash, which has never been existent into the market, it took us 8 to 9 months to actually develop that, because it was something that we created out of nothing. So a lot of study, lot of effort went into it.
Interesting. No, I think those are very aggressive and very fast execution timelines. I would say that you're able to sort of execute and launch
Yeah, I think
product
you're
as
one
well.
of the rare ones. You understand our pain. That's why I think you're being very appreciative of that.
No, I completely resonate with it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, so I had like a very interesting question for you. So, just like you asked me, I also am very curious to know about your journey. How did you come up with the white space that you have, sort of found for Perfora? And how did you even think about oral care as a category, to begin with?
So for me, or for us, I would say it was not an epiphany moment that happened one day that okay, let's disrupt oral care or let's do something in oral care. I think this process was long in the making. Just to sort of give some context to everyone who's watching the live, I've spent about 5-6 years working with a bunch of different consumer brands. I fell in love with the process of building a consumer brand in 2016, 2017, and from there on, I wanted to sort of get my hands dirty and learn more about what really goes behind building an interesting brand. There were some very not so successful experiences and successful experiences which really have shaped up my thinking and thought process around how to go about building a consumer brand. Cut to sort of 2020 during the pandemic, and ever since I was in love with the category, I would say, of consumer brands, I was always looking out for ideas that I feel I could go out and execute and start. In the first wave of 2020, we had a lot of time. I had a lot of time. My day job didn't consume too much of my time, and I always thought, let's do some sort of a side project, right? So I looked at many categories, and during that process with one of my friends, we started evaluating what are the type of products that we consume today. And we sort of looked at pretty much every consumption that happens, whether that's food, non-food, personal care, apparel, etc., etc. And that's where we realized, we've upgraded our coffee, we've upgraded our tea, we've upgraded our skincare, we've upgraded our sneakers, we've upgraded our supplements and packaged foods, the kind of cereals that we consume, the kind of fruit juice that we consume, etc., etc. But we hadn't upgraded our oral care. And that is when it stuck that this is the first thing that we do every morning and this is the last thing that we do every night. But this hasn't seen any innovation in a fairly long time. As a kid, I had 5 brands to choose from, and I still see those 5 brands being predominant. The products were boring, I would say. The products were not clean. I also felt products were not effective. And that was the start for us. We went deeper into the consumer research. We spoke to about 400 odd people to understand, what their perception about oral care is. Are they invested in this category? Are they interested in this category? And most people said that they can pay more attention to oral care, but there's no excitement. So for us, the two insights, the two broader insights that led to the brand conceptualization were there's massive lack of awareness and there is lack of excitement in consumers' mind when it comes to oral care. People don't know today, and that is how the uphill task is for us, that they don't know what is the right way to brush. They don't know what is the right toothbrush that they should be using if they have to sort of minimize, gum diseases or plaque, or not have plaque cemented on their teeth, or prevent dental cavities, etc., etc. So I think those kind of insights really helped us get started, and that was almost about 11 months ago. So we'll be completing a year in the next month and a half. So super excited about our first year anniversary as well.
Congratulations on that. It's quite a bit of journey that you guys have actually done within less than a year. So kudos to that. It's not easy to pull off something which has not been existing and to do it so well. So really, really nice. What could be, the possible growth plans that you guys have in, say, 23 by 23?
So for this financial year, probably we want to, so our fundamentals are very clear, right? That we want to provide solutions to the customer that benefit them. And we know that we want to become the go-to oral care brand for top 20, top 30 million consumers in India to start with, right?
Right.
This audience right now shops primarily digitally and of course offline as well. So we want to sort of go deeper in terms of our offline distribution, have a range of products that we can operate at multiple price points across different functionalities, and also sort of beta test a little bit in the offline retail, I would say, right? So we would be running a small beta later this financial year to see, what kind of response do we get? Are our products relevant for a non-digital savvy consumer, right? A consumer who's sort of shopping from a supermarket or from a pharmacy, right? So how can we get into their mind share? So I think those are the kind of tests we want to run. From a growth level, I think we continue to grow about 15-20% month on month. That is fairly achievable for us, considering the journey that we have and considering the roadmap that we have going forward.
Noted. I think that's a very interesting plan. So what I really found interesting is most brands these days are focusing more online, and you're talking more about the offline presence. And you rightly said that, there's a little bit of a savviness when it comes to the consumer who's buying online. But when you are doing your offline shopping, and that could be you or me doing it online, is a little different experience. And when we are offline, it's slightly different, right? So obviously oral care is an important part of your daily care essential. So what could be like a physical presence in terms of the physical retail strategy that you have as a brand going forward?
So one, I want to say it out loud that I don't know everything, right? I am someone who just figuring it out, and I'm having a lot of fun figuring it out. And anyone who wants to get onto this path of building a brand, there's gonna be no one who has figured it out everything, right? And even when you have figured it out everything, there will be sort of new learnings that'll come into picture every now and then. So in our
Right.
case as well, I don't have a clear path what my offline strategy would look like, but I would still say, we'd be sort of testing our products across different formats, right? One could be a supermarket format, second could be a pharmacy format, third could be curated retail, which could have a combination of skincare products, lifestyle products, very high
Right.
value products, etc., etc. And we'll see which category picks up for us, because what we are trying to change at a macro level is a consumer's perception about oral care, right? We want people to
Right.
think about oral care as equally, if not more important, that they think about skincare or hair care, right? So that is the game that we are into. We are not trying to compete with the other players on the oral care shelf in a supermarket. We're trying to tell people that if
Right.
you really care about your skin, maybe you should also look at your oral care. And if you want to look at oral care, we are going to be your preferred brand, right? So for us, it's
Right.
also going to be a uh, lot more differentiated from a positioning perspective, right? Because where do we place our products in an offline store? Should we place it, or should we stack them right next to the other larger players in the market? I believe no, because the perception creation happened when you're sort of uh, placed placed alongside products that will help you build that perception. So we are also thinking very differently about offline retail in terms of placement. And secondly, I'm also of the belief that placing your product is not a conclusion in itself. It's the start. What you need to focus on a brand is how are you going to sell through? How are you going to create a demand for your product, your brand in that specific 500 square feet or 1,000 square feet or a 2,000 square feet store.
Right.
What all series of activities will you need to do to drive sell through? Because if you can't drive sell through, I've seen enough brands in my lifetime that launch retail, but they just go bust. And I've also burned my hands previously in one of the earlier brands that I was working for. So we're very cautious, and that's why we're also taking baby steps, I would say.
Okay. Sure.
But
I
I
think
would love
that
to hear
is
your thoughts as
interesting.
well. Sorry I'm interrupting, but I would
No, no,
love to
no.
hear your thoughts as well on distribution of how do you think about scaling up the business? Do you think online is the way to go? Have you guys started thinking about offline? Have you guys started thinking about some other channel that I, as a consumer, might have not thought of?
Right. So, with us, I think currently our focus is dominantly online, and the reason is that we have like a roadmap of a few new products that we want to launch aggressively. And since our audience has already started, becoming aware of us in the online space, we want to sort of leverage on that. Also, we feel that when it comes to our particular products, there is a little more education in terms of how to use the particular product as well, right? It is not very simplistic, so to speak, when the adoption of the particular product comes to the consumer's routine. So we are trying to focus more online. That said, we are experimenting with a few large retail formats, which we've begun only in the past month, where we are also placing our products offline. And we're doing it from the predominant cities where we have more response from, right? So that because we feel that the consumer is accepting us far aggressively and far more easily in these particular areas, and therefore it makes sense for us to have a physical presence as well in these stores. But yeah, broadly, like you said, it's a similar for us. It's a mix of having us being in the fashion and retail stores format, or it could be a pharmacy format, because we actually, even we, because we being a science backed product, we fit into both the categories really well. So having, but specialty pharmacy stores, not like your regular medical stores. So that would be an area of difference that we would have to do, because the kind of presence or the positioning that we have as a brand, initially we would have to sort of have us placed in these specific areas, then gradually then going more towards the generic retail formats as well. So but if you have to ask me, in this particular year, in the coming 12 months, our strategies for now is more online than offline. Yeah,
No,
but
I think
it's quite insightful to what you've said. So now it'll get me thinking, and I don't know now what I would do next. So that's how it works with us, right? Somebody says something, we ponder over it, and then we try to see and realign our strategies, whether that makes sense or not. So there are quite a few interesting insights into what you said that I may think over, definitely.
one thing that this is something that I feel very strongly about, but I would want to hear your thoughts as well, and probably that will also help our viewers get insights into your mind, right? How important do you think is the branding and the packaging part of a consumer brand, right? Because uh, even when we were starting out, I was at crossroads whether we should invest an X amount of money while starting up in the brand and the packaging side of things, or should we not invest and work with work with a very economical resource, probably
Yeah.
design something on Canva, etc., and get the first version of the product out. So what are
Right.
your thoughts? Anyone who's sort of watching and wants to sort of pick your brains, what route that they should opt for? Should they sort of work with a specific, specific designer or a studio or an agency to get the first set of impression right, or that does not really matter? What do you think?
So actually, it's very interesting because what you've said, I have two parts to it. Okay, so the first part is that when it comes to having the right branding and packaging for your brand, it's extremely important because your branding starts from the day you put the product in front of the consumer, right? So it is not that today I can maybe package the product in a certain format and then tomorrow I would change it, because how would you build a recall in the mind of the consumer? How would you really make them understand the kind of tonality or the positioning, the brand communications that you want is extremely important. So I would definitely say that you should invest a lot of time, lot of effort in the first bit of branding that you do, because if you do that right, then you wouldn't have to redo that exercise and waste your time. It's something that I've faced because we pivoted from one positioning to another, right? When we did that, we had to completely revamp our packaging because earlier we were having a state of natural, and then we now have a stake of a lip care brand, which is supposed to be more fun and exciting and not necessarily the earthy tonalities that you would have in a natural brand, right? So when we moved from there, we actually spent a considerable amount of time with the in-house team. Now that's where the contradiction comes to what you were saying. So yes, a lot of people can definitely go to agencies and they can actually do that, but in our case we in fact did everything in-house. So we took a little longer, but what it did for us was that the kind of confidence now that we have and the clarity that we have in terms of our brand positioning, the kind of messaging that we want to do, why have we chosen certain color palettes, to everything, because we brainstormed so much internally with the entire team. We are very, very solid when it comes to any such questions or conversations, and therefore that reflects in your communication to the consumer, right? So that is one path that we took. Not necessarily that everybody needs to take that, because it's a longer exercise. Some people may want to grow faster, and therefore you will need experts to come on board who could probably take you a lot more faster than it did us. But yeah, so pros and cons of what we followed. But yes, branding is super, super, super important, because that's everything. That's like what the consumer thinks about your brand in a nutshell, right?
No, I completely agree. And for me, at least the way we look at branding, even the smallest of text that goes onto the packaging or onto the website, or any piece of content, whether that's 5 words or 15 words, those words really create an impact in the long run. So it's very important to think through the content that you're putting out for a consumer to read and absorb your brand philosophy. What is that is extremely important.
I agree with you there. I think it's extremely, extremely important for us to, especially being the kind of niche players that we are right now today. If you want to actually, like you said, which I really liked, I think you said lack of excitement. Now, for you to be able to communicate the feeling of excitement is actually wrapped up in your branding, right? So that's the primary way of how you can actually showcase that excitement to the consumer. Similarly for us, care, and then that feeling of taking care of you, the fact that we are science backed, as well as the exciting element of how people resonate with care and lips. That is what is reflecting in our particular branding. So, yeah. Do you want to take some questions, because we have, I think, another 5 minutes?
Sure, sure.
Maybe we could.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just let me see if people have anything. I see some. So is there any new product coming, ALANNA? Yes, we are actually working on a few. We are planning to launch it before the festive season. Just one more second. So somebody resonating with you that excitement is the first thing that I feel while I think I came across Perfora. So kudos to you. Yeah, and somebody's commenting that brand is actually bigger than the product itself. Now, I would love to get your point on this. Like, what do you think about it? Is the product bigger or the brand?
I think brand is a lot more bigger than the product. What we fundamentally believe here at Perfora is that we're trying to, you know, we're trying to sort of sell a differentiated experience to the consumer. Now that experience comes in the form of a product. If you're able to sort of communicate that or articulate that to the consumer in a way that makes him or her feel really good about your brand, I think then they're a customer for life. Because
Right.
what we need to be cognizant of as young or insurgent brands is that there will be some inconsistencies and it'll take some time for us to get a few things right. But if they love the entire experience of buying and receiving and using and sharing the feedback and how we and the kind of vibe and the energy that we're able to sort of pass on to our consumers, I think that is where the holy grail lies. So I am of the opinion that brand is something that is way bigger than the product. Your product might change. Your product that, for example, we might have started our brand out with, I don't know if the same product will exist in the same version 3 years down the line. But if I'm able to
Right.
build a solid community around my brand, if I'm able to sort of make people fall in love with the narrative of our brand and the philosophy of our brand, I think that is where the win is for an insurgent brand like us, right? Because we are not this is something that's a hot topic of conversation internally, that how are we going to compete with the giants out there, right? Because oral
Right.
care as a category is dominated by multiple giants, because we don't have the kind of marketing muscle, money muscle, distribution muscle like those guys. But the answer to sort of address all those things is that, do you know who is the founder of an XYZ brand? Do you know what the brand's philosophy is? Do you know what kind of content do they write? Do you know what their tone of voice is, etc., etc.
Right.
But when you do this exercise with your set of customers, they'll be able to sort of pick up on a few points. Yeah, this is what I like about you. But for a
Yeah.
larger brand, they don't have anything to say. It's just a brand that's been on a TVC X number of times and been available in the nearest grocery store or a pharmacy store that they have access to, etc., etc. So that's
Agree.
what I feel. Would love to also hear your thoughts on the brand versus product piece.
So I agree with you where you say that the brand is bigger than the product, because there are more elements attached to a brand than just one particular product, right? A brand has a lot of, so when it comes to, for instance, something like I said, that brand promises, right? So when you are actually taking a stance in front of a consumer for a certain cause, so for instance, lip pigmentation, like I mentioned, is big for us. So when we take a stand for something, it's a larger battle to fight. It cannot be just held against one particular product. That's a positioning that we are taking overall as a brand, and there is a cause to which you're attached. And when you are serving your customer, you think from that perspective, right? So when you're, like you said, the tone of voice or the messaging or everything that is tied in, it's actually tied in with that perspective, that strong positioning that you're taking, the kind of problem that you're solving for the consumer. That to me is where the brand comes into the picture, and not necessarily just one product, because you can get similar products in the market, but I stand for something. And that is exactly what I think for niche brands like us is the mantra, because you are standing to bring an upgradation in oral care. We are standing in, in the place of bringing an upgradation in lip care. Now that's a much larger mission than just one or two products, right? It's a battle that we've chosen to fight, and we are trying to resolve that for a consumer, provide that to a consumer that does not exist today. And if we don't have the muscle power, then like you said, it's because we are but because we are in a niche, we are able to communicate the importance of something that is not existent, create that awareness. That's where we play. So it comes from a brand and not just by the product, but products being in line with your branding is again very crucial. So you cannot have products that are talking a different language and solving a different issue which your brand is not serving. So they go hand in hand, but yes, brand is much bigger.
Yeah, and I think that realization for us also came in very early on in our journey, right? And that's why we have a very clear thought process that we're going to be investing heavily in building our brand. So,
right
back to us saying that, with Perfora, I look forward to my morning routine. Now, morning routine could contain 5 other products, but Perfora was a standout product for them, or a standout brand for them that was enabling that excitement. So,
yes.
so I think that is when we started thinking that, okay, we're not into a product business, we're actually into brand building business, we're actually into delivering an exceptional experience to the consumer, right?
Yes.
And that is where our story becomes a lot bigger than the kind of products that we currently have today.
Yeah, and the best part is that you're creating it, right? So when we created the lip wash, which is the world's first, right? We actually have so much excitement from customers coming and them asking us, okay, what is it and how does it help me and why is it that I've not used it before? When they get the product, they are in love with the cute packaging. They understand the usability, the user friendliness of the bottles that we have, the additional tools that we've given them. So all these small nuances that you take care of the customer for, that's exactly building to the kind of experience that you are suggesting, right? So definitely it is a very big aspect to our lives, and that is the take that I have from you as well, right? We both are, I think, in line with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so just Pooja, I think Pooja Jaiswal, right? She has a question about the pigmentation on her lips. Please feel free to DM us. We would love to take care of that because that's where we deal. And there is somebody who is saying that I love the packaging of Perfora, and it's the spicy coral. I think care kit is what they've used, and they genuinely like it. So again, a good note.
Thank you so much. I think every word of encouragement and validation means a lot. Our founding team ends up spending quite a few hours every week reviewing all these comments, all these emails, speaking to our customers so that we can just become better at the process of delighting our consumers, right?
Right,
So
absolutely.
even a negative feedback is a way to sort of think about what are we doing wrong and how can we sort of course correct. And a positive feedback is a validation that we're headed in the right direction. So really appreciate the encouraging words, I would say.
Yeah. And I think one aspect that we genuinely, because we are niche in a certain category and we've chosen a battle which is a tough one to fight, which the giants have also not chosen. I think one word of request that I would have for most of the consumers is to give us that patience and consistency to be able to deliver the results that they're expecting from us, right? Because that is extremely crucial, that you are patient and you're consistent and you understand that this is something that has not been there for a reason. It is something that we are actually creating as we progress as a brand, and we are doing our best, and we are therefore having a lot of loyal customers who come to us on a regular basis, who have given us that kind of time and patience, and they buy the particular products again and again. So how's been your experience in terms of the repeat customer rate and the kind of feedback that you get from your customers? That is what keeps us up, right? That is what keeps us motivated.
So I would sort of divide that question into 2 parts, right? One is the review and feedback, which is sort of subjective and qualitative, and second, and it can be quantitative in terms of the NPS that we are measuring as a brand, and second is the overall repeats that are flowing in. When we start coming in probably an year and half down the line. And when I say repeats, I mean sizable portion of repeats. Anything that's probably north of 30, 35, 40% it's because ours is a very sticky category. People are used to consuming and a particular brand for an X number of years. They're used to a particular buying behavior. So we can't sort of disrupt that overnight, right? That's going to take a much longer duration, and maybe and the early trends of that repeat might start happening in a year down the line. But what we've been very focused on as a brand is we want to measure our NPS. We want to measure the qualitative comments. We want to measure if our customers are using any of our products, whether that's a teeth whitening product, whether that's a toothpaste, whether that's a mouthwash, whether that's a toothbrush, etc., whether they're finding value in it or not, whether they're finding that, okay, after switching to Perfora, have I really upgraded my oral health? Have I sort of reduced my dental visits, or my dental visits are going to get more happier than scarier, right? So I think that is what we've been very, very focused on. On repeats per se, we're seeing very encouraging signs early on, because even in cases, so for us, repeats also sort of come into two baskets, right? Because we look at, from a consumer perspective also, we look at households and not consumers. So someone sort of buys into a product, and if they love it, and if they come back and buy 4 more, that means that entire household is converted to a Perfora user and not a particular user, right? So this is something that we track at our end. How many households are we able to convert to a Perfora user rather than just one consumer ordering the same product again and again? Because if a household consumes us, that is where the big win for us as a brand is. So I think that's what our focus has been by and large.
I think that's a great input, and like you mentioned about the household, that's a very interesting way of looking at things. And in your particular category, I think that works beautifully, because that would be the correct measure. If I'm very happy about it, I would actually introduce it to my family and friends, right? So the word of mouth, I think, when it comes to brands like us, word of mouth is definitely very, very crucial, and that is what matters the most.
Yeah, before we sort of end this, I have one question that I would want to sort of know more from you or learn more from you. What is the pressing challenge that you face while you're building ALANNA? What does because as a founder, there might be that one thing or two things or three things that you've been sort of thinking about for a fairly long time, and you haven't really solved it, right? And I think that happens at different phases of the journey as well. So what are those 1, 2, or 3 things that you'd want to sort of put out?
So I think for me, the challenge would be twofold. So I haven't really given it much thought, because we face challenges every day. So it's taking me some time to narrow it down. But what primarily is the biggest challenge for us is the awareness that lacks in the consumer's mindset right now. So one is the brand awareness, and the other is the awareness for lip care itself. People expect drastic results from us because we are targeting pigmentation. What happens is that people expect drastic results from the first product use itself, and it takes us a lot of hand holding and guiding them to understand that it's a consistent process, it's a regime that you need to follow, and gradually you will see results deliver. So that is one area of challenge. The other, as an entrepreneur, I would say that to work efficiently with the minimalistic possible resources that we have, right? That is another challenge that all entrepreneurs, I think, at our stage do face, that you have limited resources. How do you utilize your resources in the most efficient and optimum way to sort of deliver the best and possible use that you have, right? Whatever goal or target that you're carrying, you have limited resources to sort of achieve that goal. So that is another area of challenge that I would say that we definitely face. I don't know if it's the same there. But these are the two that we have. So one is very specific to our particular category, and the other is overall as a generic business. I think these are the two main ones.
No, fair enough. I think these are fair challenges, and it will take, and these are also the kind of challenges that will take some time to solve, right? These are not something you can solve at a weekly level or monthly level.
Yeah.
It's an evolution that will happen.
Exactly. That's the right term.
And you, as a founder, you can only work every day or very regularly to solve for these problems or challenges, but it'll happen over a period of time.
Absolutely. Agreed. I think the evolution was the right term, because in our categories, since we're trying to create them, it is the evolution. So it would probably take time. Yeah. Great. Yeah. So I think it was a pleasure to talk to you and to understand so much about your journey and to share my own experiences as well. And would love to have more such sessions going forward. For our audience who's actually watching, I would love to share that we have a collaboration with Perfora coming up, where on ALANNA website you would have some interesting goodies from Perfora. If you buy a lip wash, you would get some goodies from Perfora. And likewise, if you shop on Perfora for a limited amount, you would also get ALANNA goodies for free. So it's an amazing offer. Stay tuned. It's coming up in a week. So you should definitely stay tuned for it and grab these as soon as possible.
Absolutely, and once again, really appreciate Rashi you taking out the time for this conversation. Had a great time speaking and learning from you, and I hope we continue to chat both formally and informally as we continue to build amazing brands.
We do. We will definitely. Thank you so much. It was equally enriching for me.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye.
a lot. Yeah. Okay. Bye bye.